muted.
I already saw it. I saw it. They finally fixed that. What's up? Welcome, everyone, to a very special Saturday night because you're hanging out with us. And that makes it special when you're hanging out with us on a Saturday night at our new time. Brand new because you boys got weekends off. So, yeah, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing now. We got some tea we're sipping on. See, I've become quite a connoisseur of things as of late, you know. Oh, do not worry, sir. I have also come prepared for your tomfoolery and shenanigans. There we go. There we go, sir.
That's more like it. That's more like it.
Anyways, welcome. Gentlemen, how is everybody doing? Steven, I'll start with you. How are you doing, sir?
Okay. Just a little back pain been dealing with.
A little back pain.
Yep. Got a
Oh,
misaligned spine.
Ooh.
Oh, bars.
Yep.
Bars.
Yeah, the bars are not meshing together properly.
No, they're not. They're not. They're not. It's really the bars in your back. Yeah, I mean, it's serious. I mean, this is serious business. Spider, how many days since your last get off my lawn?
It's been a long time. The neighborhood's been good for a while. We've actually done pretty well. I haven't had to yell at a neighbor or a kid or a dog or anything, and I don't even remember. I don't know what to do with myself. I sat out on my porch yesterday, and it was beautiful weather, and it felt nice. I kind of was disgusted.
It was nice. Well, I'm glad both of you gentlemen are doing well. I myself am doing fantastic. So I got weekends off. I don't know. It's crazy. In all my years of experience of life, I've never had weekends off. So now I don't know what to do with myself, you know?
You're doing the Dolly Parton schedule now, 9 to 5.
Yeah, and you have to play that Rebecca Black song Friday. You know, when you get off work, it just pushes.
Hanging with my friends on Friday. Hanging with my friends on Friday.
I always thought she said fried egg.
I like fried eggs.
I thought it was a commercial for TGI Fridays.
Ooh, that
would go there too.
I would go there
expensive.
for some fried eggs. Yeah. Do they still even have one over? I mean, I don't know what we're talking about food all of a sudden. Let's go to Perkins for one of their midnight breakfast jamborees. It's better than Denny's.
Yeah, the sad decline of Denny's. That's a different episode, though.
Anyways, tonight we are talking about the grandfather paradox and the many worlds theory, as brought to you by our very own Steven, who would be up in this quadrant. Is it quadrant? Is that
works for me?
I think there has to be 4 quadrants, but I think there's 6 quadrants here because there's one above me and 2 below you. Well, wherever you're sitting in the situation. Anyways, that's math. Steven, take it away before I get too much into math.
All right. So tonight we're going to go through the many worlds theory and the grandfather paradox and how they relate to each other. So first, I guess I should ask, do either one of you already know about the many worlds theory?
Me personally, I'm a big fan. I've been a huge fan of multiverse and multi-universe, and because that all ties into string theory and quantum mechanics and a whole bunch of other really excellent metaphysical stuff that's really fantastic. Right. If you're in any way a philosophical person outside of the basic just this is Earth, this is heaven, this is hell cosmology, if you believe there's anything outside of that at all, this is the perfect place to go because there's just so much to it and there's so many ideas and there's no definitive answers at all. You make yourself insane trying to go from one end to the other. 100%. It's fascinating. I love it.
You can't even disprove it or prove it either way.
Yeah, I love it because it's just there's too much evidence for and against that you're just kind of like you either are into it or you're not. And I love it. I really do.
And what about you, Rob?
Oh, now see, this is the kind of stuff me and Spider bonded on at work because we would talk about this kind of stuff because I find it to be fascinating. Is it other worlds? Who knows? You know, the Dogon people knew about Sirius B but long before anybody else did. So, okay, you know, stuff like that is why I entertain these kind of theories because they're fascinating. But then you get into string theory and other such areas and realms, and you know you get into quantum physics, and it's fascinating. The mathematics behind it are absolutely fascinating. Even if I don't get all of those mathematics, I still like to see the breakdown of how things operate. It's interesting.
All right. So overall, the main theory that we're working with tonight between both topics is time travel. So Einstein believed that time travel was possible under certain conditions. If you were able to, break the speed of light and get gravity to basically bend around itself to send you back in time. And then I think we've talked about Kozyrev before with his mirrors and how time is fluid. Time is a concept created by mankind and humans, but time itself does not exist as we know it to. For example, in a causal loop, the end and the beginning are one and the same because the whatever it is that you're referring to within the causal loop, it exists because it had to. It's like fate almost. And no matter what you do within that universe, it will come into being or existence regardless. So the many worlds theory basically states that if you do something in one timeline and you do actually manage to time travel, you're quote unquote, you're not actually time traveling to a different period within the same universe. You're actually traveling sideways to a parallel universe on a different point within the same timeline. So let's go ahead and start there. What do you think about this? Rob, you go first.
Oh man, time travel is like my bag. I love good time travel. I like good fictional time travel. I always like the pictures of the guy that looks like he has an iPhone. I don't know if you guys have ever seen those. I like the John Titor or Titor that story. So yeah, it's cool. I think if time travel is a very interesting aspect, right? Because in a way you do if you would go out into space deep enough, what might seem like a day to us could be 100 years, 10 years to somebody else. So in a way that's time traveling. However, going backwards from how I understood it, you had to go so fast around the earth, like to be able to just like basically punch yourself back in beginning
like
of time.
Flash.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, and that's a really good representation of that because, if you're just like, then what? It's a whole thing because then you get to the breakdown of it. Where do you end up in the past? Have you gone so fast and now you're skipping over into like, Jurassic era? Are you skipping over like the 1890s?
How do you control it?
Over? Yeah, where do you stop? Or is it just combustible loop? It just and then it's just consistent, flying around the earth at that point.
Yeah, pretty much. And what about you, Spider? What do you think about the mini worlds theory?
I like it because it opens the door for a lot of otherwise impossible things.
Yeah.
It resolves a lot of the paradox ideas by generating different outcomes that branch off in different directions. My personal belief has always been, since I got into this stuff, that rather than time and space and everything being an arrow flying in one direction, it's arranged like an onion where there's layers of things.
Yep.
Every layer that you go through, the closest layers to each other are going to be almost identical, but the farther the layers get, the bigger or smaller or more significant the events are going to be. So with time travel, if you go back and you just watch, completely unobtrusive, you don't mess with anything, you don't make any changes, you just look and theoretically go back to your quote unquote your time, you're basically just stepping into a branch that's so identical to where you came from that there's no difference. Whereas the original version of you, the time travel failed and it's still continuing in that original timeline. There's nothing you can do about it. If you go back and you decide, hey, I'm going to go on a murder spree and I'm just going to go nuts and just do whatever and cause vast amounts of damage and changes and then end up knocking off Nobel Prize winners and all kinds of different things that reverberate. When you switch back, you're going to branch off into a much farther out part of the onion. You're going to branch into a place that's so far removed from where you came from, you might not even recognize it anymore. You won't be able to predict the outcome.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm going to interrupt you. That depends on how you believe that, because there's some theorists that say it doesn't matter what you do in that timeline when you return to your timeline, it is still your timeline. Like you can't jump timelines because of something you caused.
That's the other half. That's you going back to, rather than the split happening and you go off into the new timeline, you instead go back to where you originally came from, and a different version of you flies off. So there's no consciousness sharing necessarily between all.
No, not at all.
Things.
But that world would be changed, but the world that you go back to
is exactly the same.
Yeah, it's the same
Nothing
thing.
Changed. Nothing's different. That resolves the quote unquote paradox, and we're going to get into those. I'm sure some of those paradoxes tonight, and this is kind of touching on those.
Love a good paradox.
As far as how possible it is, I think scientifically a lot of this stuff is eminently possible. Just I don't know if we're quite at the point where we can generate the energy necessary to do such things. Because, of course, it's like everything else in the universe. It's all it relies on certain amounts of energy, certain applications of energy, manipulating the right matter, getting the quantum foam to do what you want it to do, and all of that is notoriously difficult to achieve. Supposedly there's been people who've been able to accomplish it throughout history. Can't say one way or another, but those are the problems you would face if you were going to attempt it yourself.
Speaking of it, whether or not it's realistic, I actually saw a very funny article the other day from The Onion where they said that CERN admitted to destroying 5 parallel universes. So I thought that was pretty funny. Because, there's a lot of conspiracy theories surrounding CERN, parallel universes, and the Mandela effect.
Well, that's a whole other aspect.
Yep.
Every once in a while, The Onion is still funny.
Yep.
Oh, every
once in a while. Just like the bee sometimes is funny.
The bee sometimes
once in a while.
It. Yeah.
Other times it's just like, you're trying too hard. You really are. But that's a good one, though. That is a good one, because
every now and again they drop some gems and I'm like, ooh, spicy.
And what I find very interesting about the mini worlds theory is with these branching timelines, like you said a minute ago, it basically opens it up so there's no consequences for your actions.
Yes.
Because, you just go to a parallel universe and you never come back to the original one, depending on, what way you believe.
Yeah, because you might have to go back. It might be something that you can't stay, because how is it gone if you're in the same? You can't be in the same place at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if there's like two of you, then it's a doppelganger, and if you see your doppelganger, it's bad news bears.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, like if that doppelganger aspect plays into effect on some of the things that you're going to talk about.
Yeah, the belief system of some people actually believes that if you actually meet yourself in, when you're time traveling, it could like break the entire universe apart.
It's like a matter and antimatter, because your particles are the same but opposite, because they're from different.
Yeah.
Because every universe would have a slightly different energy signature, so it would cancel each other out. So it'd be almost like an annihilation effect. But again, all speculation, interesting stuff. You never know.
I feel like that would be my luck, though. I'd be like, oh, hey, it's me. Oh,
interesting that you mentioned antimatter, though, because I did see an article, not a parody, but like an actual scientific article that said they just recently moved antimatter from CERN.
They've been working on it for quite a long time. It's because it's a potential new clean energy and whatnot. And
that's kind of concerning to me. Sounds kind of dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of that stuff is eminently extremely dangerous until we can figure out, if at all, how to kind of harness that kind of thing. But that's the dream. That's the dream.
We still haven't figured out nuclear power. So, I mean, now we're like, you know what? I don't want to play with you anymore.
Let's go to the next one. This was even more destructive.
Like the Toy Story beam. I don't want to play with you anymore.
All right, so let's get into the main topic, the grandfather paradox. Now, we had to understand the many worlds theory to understand my theory around the grandfather paradox. So, as I'm sure we're all pretty well aware by now, the grandfather paradox is the idea that when you go to time travel, you end up doing something or directly killing your grandfather. And as a result, your father is never born and you're never born. So, people have been trying to solve this for years. And I think it's a very simple solution. If we believe in the many worlds theory, Then
Mhm.
after you kill your grandfather and you go
Mhm.
back to quote unquote your timeline,
Yes,
you're
sir.
going sideways to a parallel universe
Oh.
where your grandfather never died.
Yeah, but what if your grandfather's like Mecha Godzilla?
Then your grandfather would probably kill you.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
You bring up a great point because that's and listen, I say this because there's some silliness to this because that could 1000% happen in a
Yeah.
sideways because you're just moving
Realistically,
sideways. All the mathematical
it's like
the
a dice
mathematics
roll.
would have to be there, right?
Yeah.
But there's not one, and there's nobody that can disprove that Mecha Godzilla would not be your
Yep.
father in another universe. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but that's the kind of things that we have to think about. I mean, it would be like, okay, so what happens if I didn't get this job and instead I got that job? The same basic concept.
Yeah.
I'm just making it silly. I'm just
Well,
being a little funny guy today.
yeah. No, you actually brought up a very good point because I was waiting for the perfect opportunity to bring this up, and you just gave me the perfect opportunity.
Oh.
So the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, great pop culture reference to the mini worlds theory. And they had the one world where their fingers were literally hot dogs.
Yes.
If you've ever seen the movie, it was great. I loved it, and it was so crazy because on what basically, spoiler alert if anyone hasn't seen the movie. Okay, there's your opportunity to not listen. So there was a part of the movie where they had a bagel, and the world was going to be destroyed by a bagel that was a black hole. How do they even come up with this stuff? And it was just wild because it was a very good representation of the pure absurdity of everything that could happen with the mini worlds theory. So, Spider, what do you think about the grandfather paradox?
It's interesting because on the face of it, this is one of those things that requires a lot of acceptance of how things in the universe work already. And even if you don't accept how things work in the universe as they are now, you have to come up with a theory independent of that on how everything would function.
Yeah.
The standard idea is you can't go back in time to do that because if you murder your grandfather, then that alters the timeline so that you're never born, which prevents you from going back in time to begin with to kill your grandfather.
So wait, do you dissolve? Do you think you dissolve if that situation occurs? Like you just
Marty
cease to
McFly.
Yeah,
that's where some imagination kind of comes in because either it's almost like if it was me, I would assume that'd be annihilation again. Like it would just that universe would just collapse because it can't fix itself because there's no law for it. But if you do believe that there are natural laws that the universe can use to fix that situation, instead, you kill your own grandfather. The timeline has to correct itself, so it sends you back where you came from with no memory of what you just did, that you went back to try to kill your grandfather, and nothing actually is altered because it fixes itself. But again, that's putting a lot of stock in how things work. We humanize a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of variables that we try to bend to our thought.
We have to use our imagination because we really don't know. There's no particular way. I lean a lot towards the annihilation kind of theory, in that if you were to actually go back and do something that would disrupt something on that level, then it would just erase everything.
Yeah.
And if your consciousness has any chance to move on to something else, then you would restart someplace else, or you'd go on to whatever. It's difficult to resolve, and I like it. There's so many different directions you can take with it, but it gets to be comical almost.
Yeah.
It gets to the point where you're coming up with so many different stories of how the timeline would change or fix itself or do this, do that, and then it becomes science fiction.
Yep.
So as far as the paradox goes, like I said, I lean more towards the annihilation theory, but I also have a little bit open for the fact that maybe the timeline is going to readjust, put you back where you started before you went back, and nothing's different. And your assumption is, oh, well, I couldn't go back in time. Nothing's going to change.
All right. And I think Rob had something to add.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if you guys noticed that I have my hand up or anything.
Yeah.
That's if you don't believe that you're the only You're it. The life that you live around you is built for you. The entire thing from the ground up. That you two wouldn't be real. I put this into practice. You two don't exist. You're all figments of my imagination,
I
which is
like
an
that.
interesting concept. But
I've had that one for a while. Like
it's
basically
interesting.
one.
It's
Oh,
interesting.
sorry. I'll let you finish. Sorry.
So I think, and obviously, I don't personally think that. No, because I got some hooligans as friends. No, I'm kidding. It's not something I can personally buy into because I've met people. You know what I mean? And it's not like if unless this is a big simulation per person like the Matrix, then I could see that. But I just personally, it's an interesting theory, and that's where I leave it at a theory.
Okay.
One last thing to drop in. I did, and I've mentioned this before on the show because it's funny. That was the basis of my graduating paper from high school to prove that I was God because
Oh, I
everyone else
remember
was just a
that.
figment of my imagination. So, nobody agreed with it. Everybody was like, no, you're full of it. But the teacher still gave me an A because
You can't
you
disprove
can't really disprove it. And I was just kind of like, I didn't care.
it.
But
Bro,
still, I put a lot of thought into it.
He tells this story to me. Like he's got dementia with it. Like he'll tell it every time we're
No,
together.
I remember. I know I've told it before. I love
He's
telling
like,
the story because it's a
"Hey,
great story.
did I tell you the story about this paper I did? Right? Oh,
Yeah, it
and
was a
then
great paper.
and then I bought a steamship, guys. I found that steamship from the other episode. I'm having it.
That's the universe right over there. It's a few universes that way.
I'm having
Like
it
3 to
towed to
5.
my house. That would be legit, though.
Wow.
Yeah, listen, I just went for the record. If you actually did bring a boat to your house of that magnitude and just sat it in your yard, I would come over and I would be like, "This is a cool boat." So I'm not gonna lie to you; it would be legit. I just want you to know
Yeah.
I think the city would be mad at me.
that it won't be the first time.
Won't be the last.
Anyways, apologies for derailing the show.
No, you're good. I actually wanted to dig a little bit deeper into what you were talking about a second ago because I've actually had that theory myself as well for a very long time now. And, what if one person, because when someone is asleep, their brain doesn't want them to realize that they're asleep. So what if someone slipped into a coma and they've been dreaming for a very long time, they got lonely in their dream, so they started creating tulpas. And then the tulpas have been around for so long that they started to forget that they were tulpas, and they got lonely and they wanted more people around, so they created tulpas, and so on and so forth. So only one human being is actually real, but nobody can remember who the real human being is.
Bruh, that sounds like the plot to Near Replicant. I'm not even. That's like basic, kind of like the plot to Near Replicant. That's
Oh, that's
interesting.
awesome. I should totally play
It was
that.
it was something that was also touched on in one of the rare few episodes that I kind of liked from Adventure Time when they found the old man who was the dreamer who dreamed of the guy who grants wishes.
Oh, yes. That was a good
Most of that show was just for me just dumb, like
yeah.
But the underlying storyline for it, there was a lot of really good story underneath that, and a lot of it really advanced, a lot of concepts,
There you go.
and that was one of them. That this all-powerful being existed because this old man was dreaming in this place that allowed that dream to become reality, and he got woken up and then basically killed the one that gave the wishes for a brief amount of time. And the universe had to kind of adjust and
Like
shift,
reset.
which was pretty fascinating. So,
Yeah.
It's funny you bring up the universe, shifting.
Mhm.
It's very reminiscent, and we're going to nerd out for a quick second, like Star Wars, like that essence of the Force, how it shifts to stay in balance. If one thing is off balance here, it rectifies the situation. So if there's a Vader born, there has to be a Luke born to counterbalance the whole situation.
Almost like the
So,
universe is alive.
yeah, almost like the universe has to counterbalance. When you do one thing, the universe counterbalances because it has to
Yes.
keep order.
and that's another theory that the universe is some kind of
The
massive
electric universe
living,
theory.
an incorporeal living organism that has corporeal parts to
Yes.
it. Which, again, I'm not going to say that I completely buy into that, but it wouldn't be something that I would discount. I wouldn't say that it's impossible. There's
Don't wake Azathoth. Don't wake Azathoth.
And
Do not.
that's I wanted to dig deeper into what Spider said. I also think that's a really interesting theory as well, because it's basically saying that, all the animals, all the plants, every living creature that inhabits this planet combined together form what one would call God.
individual
in
cells
that sort
and
of theory.
single cell organisms and things, which
Yeah.
is pretty interesting because that's also buys into the magical theory of as above, so below, how everything in the macrocosm, which is big, is the same as the microcosm, which is small. And once you get into the smallest particles, it matches the largest particles. Universes look like cells and various things. So it's you can drive yourself nuts trying to get to the bottom of all of that, because I don't think we're ever going to know the answer, but it is really fun to think about it, and it's definitely fun to discuss.
Think about trees and your lungs, and they say that trees look like your lungs, and there's all these things on the planet that look like your organs. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I feel like that was a good connector because I've seen it. Like, obviously, you can't take all of that literally. Some of it is just like somebody caught a tree at a certain angle. Like, it looks like your heart. You're like, oh, it kind of does. But some stuff actually really looks like, your DNA and your organs and the organisms in your body, as opposed to organisms outside and things like that, and how they all coexist peacefully in a roundabout way. Obviously, there's still issues, but like that whole idea kind of fits into that.
Yeah. Because what's really interesting about all that too is, now obviously there's no evidence for this, but I think, between the three of us, at least one of us should win a Nobel Prize, because it's very simple. They're like, if you can solve the observer effect, then we'll give you a Nobel Prize. Okay, how about this? The observer effect can be explained if people would accept that individual particles are conscious.
But is there proof to that?
Not direct proof, but there is the, I guess
I don't
called circumstantial.
I don't mean to rain on your parade, but that's something that I would want direct proof of, because that's a big deal. Like, that is a very, very big deal.
Which is why we need to do more testing and experimenting with consciousness, like
that
Project
would explain
Stargate.
Is that you're basically you're breaking it down to a cellular level, and you can control your cellular levels, which is very much midichlorians nerding out again. Sorry, but the concept is very similar. So you're controlling your own reality.
Yes,
so, and that's I don't disagree with it. There's just not enough evidence in terms of like you know what I'm saying. I don't mean it to be a jerk.
No, you're good, because I actually want to explain my reasoning behind that. My personal reasoning is I believe this to be the reasoning and the result of everything, because they say that, the observer effect, when the particle is observed, it makes a conscious decision and goes back in time. So what if observation is what creates the perception of time? And the end of the universe and the beginning of the universe are one and the same. The Big Bang was the heat death of the universe. And since there is no time, that is the bootstrap paradox of what we call reality. And the observer effect is evidence of every single particle being conscious, because it makes a choice based on being observed.
So are you saying it's a repeated domino effect of like, we're the heat death of a universe, and then we'll be the heat death of another universe, but then we transition into that specific cosmos. We just
that's part of it, but it goes. I'm also suggesting that it goes deeper than that, and human consciousness, not individual consciousness, but like human consciousness as a whole, like at least the vast majority of the consciousness, like 99% of human consciousness. If 99% of humanity believes in the same thing, then that will become their reality. And that's where I think the problem lies, is people continue to disagree with each other and disagree until they get more and more violent, and they end up causing the destruction of the universe because they just get that violent with each other, and they keep advancing their technology to the point where they're able to cause that. And each time they do, they reset their own bootstrap paradox, and they have to try again and again until eventually there is a way out of the loop. But I believe the way out of the loop is by human consciousness being unified to 99% of the same belief system as described by Project Stargate, as well as the law of attraction, the placebo effect, and the electric universe theory would all support this idea.
Now, here's where part of the issue is. And I'm going to get a little biblical here for once.
Nice.
I'm going to tie something in. So because I think Rob will appreciate this, the connection I'm going to make here. Humans are, and this is something I've said about myself. I've always said myself, I'm too smart for my own good. It's not smart as a compliment. Like, oh yeah, being smart is good.
Yeah.
Being a certain level of smart, you question too much, you overthink things too much, whatever.
Yes.
Humans are too conscious for their own good. They're so wrapped up in their own consciousness that they miss all kinds of subtle details and all kinds of little things. And part of that, if you want to get biblical, if you want to look all the way back to Genesis and you want to look at the trees and you want to say, if you want to be as I am, this is the fruit that you eat, but you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to be like me. That's a higher being telling lower beings it's difficult to be like me.
It is.
It's not just,
it's not a party.
It's not something you want to do, and I don't want that for you because that's pain.
And
that's
responsibility.
Problems. That's missing out on what you're getting in this natural world that's been made for you.
And you get no rest.
Now, I'm not a religious person, but regardless, I can see the symbolism in here that it's, again, a higher being telling them the whole reason you're not supposed to do that is for your own good.
Yes.
Not that we don't want you to be able to think for yourselves or that you shouldn't be smart or that you can't question things, but what you're getting is where we're at. We're looking so deeply into these subjects that it's almost impossible to agree on a level necessary to put forth certain research and certain ideas and certain things. And take me, for example. I am 100% diametrically opposed to Stephen on the issue of consciousness. I would never, on any level, want to be part of a universal consciousness and be mixed with other people. Not even a little bit. And I'm not saying that, I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying I would not.
Listen,
no way. I want to be an individual 100% forever. No mixing of any kind of my.
If you didn't say that, I would be offended because that's the answer I would expect out of you to say. That's it.
I have something crazy to say, actually.
Please, no, no, you go ahead.
Yes.
You go right ahead.
Okay. On being an individual and being part of the universal consciousness, you get to maintain your individuality and be part of the universal consciousness at the same time is what I'm suggesting.
Right.
We're all part of the universal consciousness. And what I mean is everyone has access to what we would call the Akashic records. Everyone has access to the same source of information, the same well of knowledge, but they still maintain their individuality, their personal preferences, and their free will. They just get to telepathically communicate with everyone else.
I'm so stubborn that I would still say no. I would still be like, no.
So I think the universal consciousness is our DNA that can be unlocked. It's encoded. It's very similar to computers, right? That's what I think.
You can copy and paste.
I think that all of that stuff is your DNA and able to. And this will go back to being able to control life on a cellular level, to be able to do something like that. Because there's certain things people can do. Snake handlers of West Virginia. Okay, this is a perfect example. They take one passage out of the Bible when Paul is sitting around, he gets bit by a viper. And he's like, be gone. And he's like, I'm good. God's got me. Right. And he didn't die. And so they take that one verse and they have a whole church about it. And they handle snakes and they're like, yeah, watch it bite me. No.
Because they have faith.
They have faith, but people die.
Yep.
Because God, there's something we have to understand when we're talking about the Bible. God wants you to have common sense. He made things dangerous for a reason, not for you to go pick them up and be like, "Ooh, come here, give me my hand." No,
Yeah,
because that could have been avoided, and it's really just it's showing off, you know. Anyways, not to get on that, but some people live from that, and then keep getting bit over and over. They build up an immunity, or they build up a. Is it immunity?
Yeah, like the 1%.
Yes, and they're like, "Yeah, I can do it." They build up a tolerance level for snake venom. And that's just how their body reacts with said venom. Other people, no, it kills them. Because guess what? That's still a snake. God made it poisonous or venomous for a reason. For a reason. Right? And here people are picking them up and then, I don't know, it's tough. It reminds me a lot of like, I don't know if you guys know about Christian Science. And Mary Baker.
There's a lot of reconciliation. Yeah.
And you either, because they believe both in the medical and the spiritual, but they believe you should do one. Don't do both. If you're going to be spiritual in your healing, no hospitals. If you're going to be physical in your healing, hospitals.
Because you have to trust that the Lord created the doctor who knows what he's doing and created that knowledge. So it's an interesting, another little bit of paradox, kind of, but it's not. It's also reconciliation. It's like you have to choose where your faith is going to go. You can't just blindly be faithful to, oh yeah, I'm fine. Like the guy on the roof with the flood that I've told that story before. We're not going to get into that same joke again, but it's the same concept, and it's just fascinating because me getting back to the consciousness and everything like that, I would be one of those people who would 100% eat the fruit regardless of what I was told because I'm kind of a jerk.
I would too.
And because, you know, I push those limits, but it's a detriment to me sometimes. It is a detriment to me sometimes in that I look too deeply into some things. I look too deeply into situations. I look too deeply into what people say, and I'm looking for more reasons why. Well, why is this? What is this? I used to look for puzzles in everything. I used to be really a lot more conspiratorial and a lot more paranoid. I've gotten pretty good over the last several years. I'm a lot more chill now, but it gets, once you start going down that little spiral, you get stuck in there, and then everything people say has a double meaning. Every situation, every political thing is two different things. This is a cover-up. This is not a cover-up. This is this. This is that. And it's how people are now. We are too conscious. And that's the rise of social media probably and the internet and having too much access to too much information that we're not looking for. If you're looking for information, that's one thing because you have a goal in mind.
Kojima warned us about that.
You have research you want to do. You're like, I want to look about this subject. If you just are bombarded with all these facts and figures and stories all day long, you have no idea. You're just blindly either believing all of it or cutting all of it off, and you don't care. And both of those situations are bad, and you can't develop or grow from any of that. And that's the issue with consciousness, and that's why we would struggle, I think, if we knew that there was for sure a multitude of universes, because I don't think we'd be able to handle that well. As much as some of us believe that and believe like, yeah, definitely there's other universes around. As a society, I don't think we would
only
be able to handle population. And even then, like it just takes one of those people to crack and to mess up. And then the whole system comes back down again and you're back where you started. So because the smartest people tend to have, there's other things that go on. Just because you're hyper intelligent doesn't mean you don't have other things that could shatter your consciousness. So, it's a tough area, and it's a good area of discussion. And I'm glad we got into it. Also, I'm glad we all got these opinions in there because there's a lot that you can talk about in this area.
And did you have anything else? Not
Oh
to
no,
cut you
I think I'm done.
Okay.
I've gone like all far off into other solar systems.
Yeah, you was out there for a minute. I was with you. I was like, I'm with him. He's
I'm
out there, but
connecting the
I'm with
dots,
him.
and that's illustrates my
Yeah.
point.
He's crazy man pointing with all the
The
strings
strings,
and
yeah.
things and
The interesting thing, though, since you brought up the apple, I would like to speak what I believe about the apple. And what I think is, okay, now in Gnostic beliefs, they believe that there was a world of pure light where a being of pure light created everything else, and they had aeons and all this other stuff. So, that stuff happens in their belief system, all that. And then they believe that the aeon of knowledge and wisdom let's just be honest, she got a little bit cocky. Her name was Sophia, and they believed that she
Wisdom.
tried to create something by herself. And the
about
being
Earth?
that she tried to create, because she tried to create it on her own without a partner, it got tainted. And they called it Yaldabaoth or Samael. And they believed that this being, she locked it away in what we call Earth. And it was the quote unquote God of the Bible. And what they believe is that in the Garden of Eden, the apple was going to inform Adam that he was one of these beings of divine light from the realm above. And the God of the Bible, who they call Samael, didn't want to share his knowledge and didn't want to share his power because he was afraid that if Adam ate the apple, he would gain the knowledge that he was a false god. And he even said in the Bible, it says, for Adam is now like us. And he asked, where is Adam? At one point in the Bible, he asked, where is Adam? But if he was truly an all-knowing God, then they surmise, why would he need to ask where Adam was if he was truly an all-knowing God? And they believed that he was afraid that Adam was going to go eat the fruit of eternal life and be just as powerful as he was. And that was their fear. So I thought that was a very interesting take on that. So, what do you think about that, Rob?
Oh,
You're the religious professional.
I'm not. I'm by no means a professional. I just enjoy
Remember, we've got 15 minutes.
Yep. This is how I wanted to close it out tonight. This last discussion.
it. First of all, thank you for the time reminder because I could go.
I know.
So the story of Yaldabaoth is interesting because there's others around him too that are also cursed, these aeons, if you will. And the aspect of Yahweh being almost like a horrible demigod.
The demiurge.
Yeah.
And so I don't buy into that theory. I think the God of the Old Testament is the same God of the New Testament is the same God. But Gnostics believe that those two gods are separate. They're not the same. They're not the same being. And so Sophia is wisdom. And there's a lot of Gnosticism is an interesting study. I don't believe it, but I still find it interesting. And there's parts and pieces to it that make sense when it talks about suffering. Like, yeah, you're going to have to suffer. Life's rough.
Yeah.
But it's almost emo to put it in more,
I grew up emo, so I love it.
yes, exactly. But it's a very emo version. It's very much like Catholics have Saint Ignatius of Loyola, right?
The Catholics hated the Gnostics.
They're whipping their own backs.
Yeah.
I listen. I like that in theory, and I'll tell you why. It's great discipline because you're always going to think, I shouldn't think like that. But it's also dangerous because you're creating groups of people who do this, and then you could just, just push them to a point. So I just find the whole thing of that concept interesting, but Gnosticism is not something that I personally believe. That's me.
Yeah, that's fair. And Rob, you are Rob. Sorry.
Nice. Back to me again. Here we go.
Multiple universe.
Yeah. Spider, what do you think?
Hey, we have 12 minutes.
Thank you for that. The interesting thing about a lot of these side schisms and a lot of these different sects of beliefs is that many of them tend to match some of the other main pantheons that came along later,
Well,
like the Romans and the Greeks and the
Yeah.
Egyptians all had groups of gods that were more human than we would expect.
I just wanted to say really quickly that Gnosticism is very old and was
Right.
older
Yeah,
than
it is.
a lot of these.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of your later religions, if not most, not all of them, are all based off of earlier source
Yeah.
material.
Yes.
I've already talked many times about how the Bible comes from Mesopotamian sources and things like that.
Yeah.
But, that's digression now. So throughout a lot of our history, we've subscribed to belief that the gods or the deities or whoever we worship are sort of like us. They have disagreements, they have lusts, they have things that they do with each other, both good and bad, that resemble a lot of the things that we do to each other. We're in their image. Whereas the singular Christian deity that came out, well, the Jewish deity came out first, followed by the Christian, followed by Allah, is incorruptible. It's not human at all. They have no human feelings. They have no human emotions. They're particular in a certain way, which stands out. And it's the latest evolution of the idea of religion, which is kind of interesting. I think it's another cue that we're a bit too conscious for our own good, that we've decided that, well, we should be the ones who have all the human qualities, and if we're imagining someone greater than ourselves, then they shouldn't have human qualities because they're better than us. Whereas previous civilizations were like, no, they are stronger, they are tougher, they are more powerful than us, but they're a lot like us. They think like us. That's why we think the way we do, because we came from them. So it's an interesting disconnect that you get from the three main religions now versus a lot of the polytheistic religions that you get past. And the Gnostics were a lot like that. Again, came from older sources.
Yeah.
And it evolved to where it got to before the Catholics basically went in and boot stomped it and said, nope, you're not doing that anymore. Get out of here. Just like they did with a lot of things.
And the symbolism is extremely important as well.
A lot of it, well, because a lot of this was pre-written word. A lot of this was pre-written language. You got hieroglyphics, you got Viking Ogham, you've got cuneiform, you've got all these different things. So you had to express these ideas in symbols.
Who knows what didn't get who knows what was destroyed? Who knows what was destroyed? There's whole languages that we don't even know about, that we only hear rumors of things like that.
We could do a whole episode on dead languages.
But I'm saying like languages that just don't have anything. Like Latin's a dead language. They speak it in like the Vatican and stuff.
But it has words.
But it's dead. Yes.
This, like you're talking about previous, before they even had the words written out. They didn't have letters. It was all symbols. And there was a lot of that. There was a ton of that. And then the world got by.
There's a lot of symbols, spiritual practices as well.
And
people from different cultures could read those symbols, and they knew it was like, oh, this is a warning, don't go this way, or this, you shouldn't go here, or there's food here, stop by here and get some food.
Yeah, and it's just an interesting shift in how things have gone, and you could make an argument to try to loop this back into the subject as we're about to close here, that perhaps some kind of universal shift occurred between the old beliefs and the new beliefs. You could say that something interfered, that something altered the path of the consciousness.
I've told you guys. I've told you.
And perhaps the symbolism of the garden and the fruit and the tree is the story of when that shift happened, because we became a different level of consciousness that believed differently and behaved differently. And that's why we had to do things differently, with hardship and with ways that, before then, maybe we all knew how to farm. We all knew how to take care of animals. We all knew how to tend gardens, so to speak. And after that, things were different. The world was different. So But again, before getting too off topic, it all boils down to what we're able to perceive around us. And I'm a huge fan of the multiverse. I mean, I'm a big fan of the idea of all of that kind of thing, of what if. It helped me reconcile a lot of old broody feelings I used to have when I was slightly more angsty than I am now, which was pretty darn angsty. Because it helped me kind of come to terms with, well, you couldn't really change this because this was something that was going to happen here. You couldn't really change this. You could have changed this, but you didn't, and now you just deal with what happened. And so I think as a society, we kind of have to just deal with that on a level and become slightly less conscious of everything around us and a bit more conscious of everything we've got going on in here.
Inside. Yes.
And that's just that's kind of a weird way for me to end my part in the episode of multiple universes, but I think it ties together on a metaphysical level.
Because there's a universe within us as well.
So that's what I think anyway. I'm done for the night. You guys can finish up.
So before you put up your laugh lavender sign behind you and first coffee, then it's wine o'clock sign. All right, we'll go ahead and close this out. Okay. What I think in this whole situation is that it's an interesting thought process, but until one of us slips into an alternate reality, just make sure you have a word between your friends so that you can keep track of if you do slip into alternate realities.
I still insist that Fire Marshal Bill was on Mad TV in an alternate reality.
He was in Living Color. It was played by Jim Carrey.
But I never heard of it until after I started telling people about the skit.
I mean, yeah, and that right there is how we're going to end it, folks, because it's time to go. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Next week, Spider, what do you got for us?
It is the final episode of the season. We're going to take a month off. We're going to be off for a whole month.
I'm not going to know what to do with myself. I'm like, man, I have a month off.
We're just going to get together once to try to plan out the episodes for the following season. That's it. Other than that, I'm not going to be looking at your mugs at all.
You mean I'm not looking at yours?
Hey, that too. I mean, a lot of people don't like to do that.
Guilty as charged.
But I will be talking about getting back to the meat and potatoes of time travel. We're going to be talking about Victor Goddard and his experience at an airfield that shouldn't have been active, but it was.
Spooky time.
And that's how we're going to end the season.
Nice. Excellent. As always, why be boring when you can be uncanny? Next week, Spider's got Dick Goddard. He's going to predict the weather. We'll see you guys then. Thank you.